Welcome to Programming with Python session 14. Before we go ahead with the session, I would like to introduce you to the channel and the website. This is our website. You can go through this website to understand what we offer, who we are, and also what is our mission, and also the courses that we offer. And if you want to get in touch with us, here are the means through which you can contact us. Please make use of this. And most importantly, the resources page where you will be getting all the resources that have been used to conduct these live sessions. You can download them for free and you can make use of them. Not only that, but also the information about the next live session date and time will be published on the same page. So I would strongly recommend you to bookmark this page and watch this page every now and then to get the latest updates. And one more thing is to I would strongly encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you will be getting quizzes on a daily basis and you can practice you can just this is every quiz will be less than half minute, so you can go through this each quiz and you can just guess the answer, and I would suggest you to watch the quiz till the end so that the answer will be highlighted. The answer is inbuilt in this quiz, so you can just guess the answer and just wait till the quiz plays till the end, and finally the right answer will be highlighted. You can compare your guessed answer with the right answer. All right. So this is our Technolearnit YouTube channel, and there are also LinkedIn profiles, and also the we have a LinkedIn profile as well as other social media profiles. So please subscribe to these and get the latest updates on this. All right. With that said, let us move on to our session. Today we are going to mainly focus on functions in Python. So, what is a function? So, conceptually, why we need a function is what we need to first understand before we get into the more details of functions. So, why functions, right? Why do we really need functions? Okay. So, assume that we have some application or a program which has 1,000 lines of code. Okay. What if we have 1,000 lines of code? What's the problem with it? So, assume that your code is like this. Okay. You have all the statements. Okay, some Python statements assume. Okay, so if you have all these 1,000 statements written in this sequential order in one place, okay, what would happen is it would be difficult to read because all the statements are just within a single file, and that file is very big, having 1,000 lines. So our objective is now to make it more convenient for programmer as well as maintaining the program. So how can we make this 1,000 lines of code more easy to read, also more easy to debug? For example, there are some issues there are some issues and you need to identify the root cause and fix them. So how do you really debug if you have all these 1,000 lines? Do you start from line number one and keep executing line by line and adding some debug statements and identify that, or how do we do that, right? Similarly, if you have 1,000 lines of code, probably some of the statements might have been repeated. You might have repeatedly written the same code again and again because you want them to be executed again. Is there a way to reuse the existing code by writing it only once but execute it whenever you want it, right? These are all the questions that you need to come to your mind, and the answer for all these questions or all these possibilities is functions. And if you want to manage or maintain your 1,000 lines of code easily, then functions is what you need to use. So at a high level, if you have a program with thousands of lines, right, you have to think of functions. Okay. And when I say thousands of functions, all those 1,000 functions should be in one place. Okay, that's a expectation, then functions would come handy. Okay. So what is a function? Function is a named block of code that performs a specific task. For example, let us go. If you go to ATM, there if you click on balance check, it will just give you the balance. Or if you click on the button withdraw, it will ask the further questions accordingly. Or if you ask for print passbook, it would print the passbook also. So each button in the ATM machine will do some specific job. And when you ask for withdrawal, it doesn't ask for entering your passbook to deposit the money, right? So because these are two different operations. Similarly, a function with a name also does the same. It has one and only one objective to accomplish. So it is a function is basically a named block that performs some specific task. Okay. So to define a function, you need to use def, which is a keyword in Python, and then the function name. Function name, you can give any name to your function following the names to be rules to be followed to name the variables in Python. Okay. Generally, we use snake case for naming the function, right? Because when you have multiple words, just separate them using underscore and continue to add as many words as you want in your function name or the variable name, right? Now, so indentation is very important while you are writing some functions, right? So any statements that belong to that function, that you have to put, you have to write it indented, right? And a function can have any number of statements, in fact, right? A function can have any number of statements. All right, so this is how function looks. And these functions will really make your code more easy to read, because now you are not going to write all those 1,000 lines of code in one place. You will probably decide to break them into logical small pieces, and that each small piece becomes a function, in fact, right? So functions would help you to make your code more easy to read, also more easy to debug. The reason being, if there is some issue or some problem that you have identified and you need to fix it in the code, you need not really focus on all the 1,000 lines of code, but you can just focus on the exact function where the issue is coming from, and you can correct the code within that function, right? And it is also easy to reuse. I'll come to this concept of reusability with functions, how we can achieve reusability in functions. I'll show you practically. Similarly, it is easy to maintain as well. What does it mean when I say maintain? Maintain is nothing but, say for example, you have developed this 1,000 lines of code and you have just given this to your friend, or you have sold this to your customer, and while they are using this application or executing these thousands of lines every day, they found some issues. That means they found that this 1,000 lines of code somewhere is not working as expected. Then they may reach out to you stating that this is what I tried, this is what my expectation is, but I did not get the expected output. Where what will you do then? You'll again refer to all those 1,000 lines of code and identify what is the function that is responsible for doing that job where we see a discrepancy in the output, and you fix that particular function instead of looking at all the other 1,000 lines of code. So that is what maintenance means. Maintenance is nothing but, once you develop some code, you sell it off to someone or you give it to some other um, person, and that person comes back and states that okay, here is a bug, right? So maintenance means it's not just, you are not just done by just developing the software, you need to also maintain it. Maintenance means fixing the bugs for certain amount of years. Also, most importantly, functions make the code compact in size, meaning instead of all those 1,000 lines of code, you are not going to reduce the number of lines of code probably, but of course there are chances that you can also reduce the number of lines of code using functions also. I'll show that with an example. All right, now, so look at this. Here def is a keyword. print underscore hello is the name of the function. And remember, when you are writing a function or defining a function is what we generally call technically. A function name has to be followed by braces, and that could be empty braces also, as you see in print hello. Then put a colon. This must. Then you come to the next line and continue to write the code for that function. Write the statements of that function after indentation. Make sense? So here print hello has only one statement, which is print hello. This is another function if you look at it. Okay, how did I know that this is a function? The keyword def indicates that it is a function, right? And the name of the function is print by, and it just has one statement within itself. And there is one more function if you see here, give me 5, right? This is the name of the function, and it has a single statement again. There is one more function by name do nothing, and it also has only one statement. What is this pass? Pass is a keyword again in Python, and if you want your function to do nothing, then you have to write the statement pass, so that control comes back to the function which has called this. I'll come to all those calling function, called function and all, but these are the examples of functions and how to write functions. And in this case, each function has only one line of code, one statement within itself. That's okay. Okay. And there are certain rules to be followed while defining the functions. What are those? If you look at it here, right? Start with the def keyword to mark the beginning of the function header. Okay. If you have to define a function, you have to use def keyword, which indicates that whatever follows, that is going to be a function. And end the header line with colon. As you see, as I already said, def print hello, then colon. That colon is must. Header line means that single line where you have def and whatever is followed. Give the function a descriptive name using snake case, and that's what we said. Here snake case is just making the words separated by spaces and sorry, not spaces, underscore, right? And here you can very well print make the function name as print small case h and then hello. That is also fine. Okay, different organizations use different coding standards, but based on Python coding standard, it should be snake case only, not camel case. All right, indent the body by a block by 4 spaces. That's what you see, the indentation where the body or the statements within the function have just moved towards right by 4 spaces. And use an optional return statement. Optional return statement is optional, but if you want to return some value back from the current function, you have to use return statement. We'll see all of this practically. And optional parameters should be placed within braces. And what are those parameters and what is the difference between arguments and parameters, we are going to look at in some time. And mainly, what are the benefits of using functions? Functions allow you to reuse the code. So reusability is the most advantageous point among others when you use functions. Okay, and it avoids code duplication, because you will basically, the concept here is write once and use many times. That's what generally people use when we talk about functions, right? People say that. So write once and use it as many times as you want. So that is the concept of having the functions in your code. And a less code. Why less code? Because you don't repeat the statements again and again, but you will just make use of the existing piece of code. Okay, by calling that. What is calling will come to know in some time. And it is easy to maintain as well. As I said, identifying the bugs and fixing the bugs can be now become easy because your code is modularized. What do you mean by modularized? Modularized code means you have implemented functions and written the code within those functions instead of writing all the thousands of lines of code one after the other, one after the other in a single file and within the single scope. So modularization means breaking your entire big program statements into small functions, and each function can perform It's a dedicated task. That is the main advantage of using functions. Also, it allows us to do testing easily because in theory, each function can be tested separately or independently. Okay, theoretically, but not all the times you can do that. But most of the times, functions can be tested independently so that testing can be carried out on individual functions. Next comes the reusability aspect. And say, for example, you are going to define a function here. To define a function, you need to use def keyword and then some name to the function and then colon. Then you start writing the statements within the body. So here print input error. What is this print input error? It is a function. It is the name of the function. And it has one statement here, which is print input must be greater than 0. Okay. It has some output statement. Now, just writing the function is not enough. If you just write the function, it's not going to execute by itself. What you need to do to execute the body of a function is you need to make a call to that function. That means you need to call that function. To call that function, you have to just mention the name of the function. That's it. And you are going to call this again. So here you write the statement call it again, and again you print, you call that same function again, and again you call it, you print the function again. So this is how you can make a call to the function again and again. How many times did I write the function? Only once. But how many times did I make use of that code within that function? 3 times in this example. This is what we call write once and use many times. This is the aspect of reusability. This is the reusability aspect of a function. You write it only once, but you execute that code as many number of times as you wish by calling it many times, many times, many times. Wherever you want to execute that piece of code, you just make a call to that function. This is what the principle here is: don't repeat yourself. That means don't repeat the same code, don't repeat writing the same code again and again within the big applications in general. Why? Because it becomes difficult for you to maintain such code if you repeat yourself. So instead of repeating yourself, you write the code only once, but make use of that code again and again wherever you want by just making a call to that function, by writing a calling statement to that function, right? That is nothing but don't repeat yourself, but just write it once and use it many times. Before I get on to types of functions, I would like to really show you whatever we have discussed so far practically. So I'm jumping on to IDLE, right? So I'll first show you how to define a function and all. Okay. So def print message. So you see def is the keyword in Python which indicates that you are going to write some function, and print underscore message is the name of the function. And here you can write some output statement. For example, I am in print message. All right. Sorry, I did not terminate that. Give me time to type this again. Okay, I'm done. So if I have to execute this piece of code, what I need to do is I need to just make a call. How to make a call? Making a call to a function means just mentioning the name of that function. You see what happened now? That output statement got executed. How? Because you made a call to the function. And what if I make this call once again? It does the same thing. So function here is nothing but a named block of code. And right now, message print message is a function which has what is the name of that block of code? Print underscore message is the name of that block. How many statements it has? Only one statement. If you want, you can add more and more statements to that function. And you can call this function as many times as you wish. All right. This is how you can make calls to the functions. Now I'm going to a file to show you the same concept in more practical way. Let me take some example and we will just start writing some code here. Okay. So for example, I have print one, print two, and print three. All right. I have three print statements. So if you just execute this as it is, what happens? What would be the output? These are simple print statements, output statements, no? So it will produce three lines of output. Well, nothing special so far, correct? Now, if I have to make this as a function, I need to just write it as diff. So give some name to this, okay? Something like this, and use braces, put a colon, and then start indenting this. You are putting these statements inside the function, okay? And we are done. If you now execute this code, nothing happens. There is no anything that it produces. See, nothing happened. Why is that? You have a function in your file, but this has never been executed. Why is that? Because to execute a function, you need to have a calling statement. What is calling statement? Calling statement means you need to just mention the name of the function somewhere here. All right. Now let me run this code. You should see the same output as above. What did I do? I have just written this is called function calling statement or calling statement simply. Function calling statement. If you don't write function calling statement and the function is available within your file, still it won't get executed. That's why function calling statement is very important. And what is this? You have written the block of code no for this function message. This is called function definition. This is called function definition. You have defined a function. Defining the function means mentioning the name of the function and then putting a colon, coming to the next line and writing all the statements that belong to that function. These three statements belong to the body of the function message, right? All right. Now, what if I want to have one more function in this same file? You can define it. You can define as many functions as you wish. You can say define say by. Okay, this is a function. It may have only one statement. It may have like no statement, right? One statement. And if I run this, what happens now? If I run this piece of code, what would happen? What would be the output? It would be just 1, 2, 3, but this won't be printed. Very important. Let me show you. It won't be printed. Okay. So you see the output is just 1, 2, 3, but you won't get any statement from this function. Why? Because you didn't make a call to this function. To make a call to this function, what you need to do is you need to mention the name of that function and just write down the braces. Okay, you have written the function calling statement now. Let us go and run this. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Let me run this again. You see, bye for now message also has come. Observe the code, right? Observe the code. Okay, you get these three statements executed and this statement also executed. Why is that? Because you have written two function calling statements. This is also a function calling statement. Okay. What is the reusability concept here? How many times did I call message function? Only once. How many times did I call say by function? Only once. What if I want to call this function twice? All that you need to do is just mention the name of the function followed by brackets just one more time and run this. You see the output now 1 2 3 by for now. From where did these statements come? First 1 2 3 statements have come from this place. Why? Because this is a calling statement. So from here these three statements got executed. After that, by for now this has come because you have called another function say by. So you got this by for now. Are we done? Not yet, because there is one more function calling statement, and this function calling statement allows us to print this again. Make sense? So where is reusability involved? This is nothing but reusability because you are calling this function again and again. You have called this function twice, but how many times did you write the code for that function? Only once. Write once, use many times. So I have used it that many times. Here I have used it twice. If you want, I can use it as many times as I wish. I can call that function any number of times, right? So if I just go ahead and run this 1 2 3 has repeated multiple times. Why? Because you have called that function multiple times. So every time you call that function, it just does its job. So what is the meaning of a function doing a specific task? Message is a function which just prints these three statements. Say by is a function which just prints this single statement when it is called. So say by function cannot do this job of printing 1 2 3, or message function cannot do this job by for printing by for now. So each function has its own dedicated task associated with it, right? So that is what we say function, each function has a dedicated work to do, right? All right, so reusability concept is this, and if you don't have function concepts at all, how could you achieve this kind of output? You might have done in a different way. You might have written these three statements first, then you might have written this print statement. Then since you have to repeat these statements again, you might have copied and pasted those statements once again, and again you need it one more time, so you would have copy pasted this same again one more time, and you got it third time also, so you need to copy paste this code again one more time. So totally, if you look at the number of lines of code, if you do that way independently without using any function like message or say by, how many statements you will be getting? In the case of message, you have to write three statements in the place of message. In the place of say by, you have to write one statement, so total four statements. Again message, so three more statements again. 4 plus 3 7, 7 plus 3 10, 10 plus 3 13. You might have written 13 lines of code, and there is a repetition. What is repeating? These three statements are being repeated in your code. To avoid that repetition and make your code less, or making it more compact, right? You can just write that repeating piece of code separately, give it a name, and make it as a function. Whenever you want to execute that piece of code, just make a call to that function by mentioning the name of the function and braces. That's all. Now the control will automatically go to the function definition or the body of the function. Here we call this as a body of the function message, and this is a body of the function say by. Make sense? This is a body of the function message, and this is a body of the function print. Sorry, body of the function say by. Okay. All right. So this is how we talked about how to a way to define a function, how to write. Defining a function means writing the code for the body of the function and mentioning the name of the function, right? We know now just writing the function is not enough. If you have to execute that, you need to make a call to that. Without these statements, though you have this piece of code in your file, they will not get executed. That's why function calling statement or calling statement is very, very important. If you don't call these functions while those functions are still existing in your file, the code within those functions will never get executed. That's why function calling statement is very important. Using these function calling statements, we have to make calls and make the code or the body. This is also called body of the function message. This is a body of the function say by. That is how we need to make use of existing functions, and you can call it any number of times. So that is the reusability aspect of a function. All right. Next thing I want to really focus upon now is the types of functions. Okay. So functions can be classified into types based on different categories. And here we are going to categorize the functions based on who has defined those functions. So there are two types based on who has defined those functions. One is built-in functions and the second one is user-defined functions. And what are some built-in functions? Example for built-in functions. Print is one, len is one that we have already used multiple times. Min is another one, max is another. There are thousands of built-in functions available. So built-in function means what? Built-in function is a function which will automatically be available for you to use once you install the Python software. So print is a function, obviously, right? Len is a function that we have been using when we have talked about lists, tuples, and dictionaries and all that, right? Strings also. Min is a function, max is a function. But now the question is who has defined these functions? Defining the function means writing the body to the functions, right? Who has written the code to print the value to the print function? It's not me or you as a developer, right? The moment Python is installed, you are directly right away able to access that function or call that function, right? So such functions are called built-in functions. Built-in functions are the functions that come automatically with the software installation. You need not write their definitions. They are automatically supplied as part of the software. You just make calls to those functions and get your job done. You have been using print thousands of times, right? That means you're only calling the print function. You're not defining the print function. Print function has been defined by somebody else already, and it is now part of Python. So it is not a developer like you who has really defined the function print. Okay. All right. Next one is user-defined functions. What are user-defined functions? User-defined functions are the functions which are defined by the users or developed by the users. All these examples, print hello. Print hello is not part of Python, right? So it is what it is, user-defined function, because you or some developer has written the code for that print hello function. So all these functions you see here, hello by, give me, if I do nothing, these are all user defined functions. User here, user means the developer. So if developer has written some code, and in my example in this Python file, what are the user defined functions? Message is a user defined function. Say underscore by is a user defined function, because Python doesn't know what is message function. Is does Python know any function by name message? No, it doesn't. But we as users we know that because we have defined that function, correct? So message is user defined function. Say by is user defined function. And of course, there is one more function. I don't know if you have observed it. It is nothing but print. Print is a function. Very, very important. Print is a function, right? But did you write the code of print? See, you are able to write this message like message, okay, because this message function has been defined in your scope. You are able to write a statement like say by, because within this say by, this you have written the function body of the say by function, right? So you are able to make calls to these functions. While you are able to make call to print function, did you define the function print anywhere within this scope? No. Still you are able to execute or call that function. Why? Because print is a system defined function or built-in function. Because print comes along with the software installation, so you can directly make use of it, right? So this is what you need to understand from built-in functions or system defined functions. The counterpart of built-in functions is user defined functions. User defined functions are the functions which are developed by or written by the developer. Okay, built-in functions are the functions that are already part of Python, and once the Python is installed, you can access these functions and directly make calls to such functions and get your job done. So if you want to just look at the list of Python functions, here is the link. So here you see under the documentation of the Python, you got the list of built-in functions that are available in Python. So ABS, absolute value, all that. Okay, all of these are built-in functions in Python. Let us look at length. See, len is a function because Python can directly recognize what a len means if you pass the right argument to it. Okay. All right. If you just follow this page, you will understand what are the built-in functions that are available within Python. Alphabetically, it has been given here, so you can just have a look at it whenever you can. All right. So the other category of functions is what it is based. This classification has been made based on the parameters. Again, what is parameter? And like, first of all, there are two types of functions based on the parameter classification. Classification based on the parameters. There are two types of functions: functions with no parameters and functions with the parameters. What are parameters? First of all, let us go back to IDLE file, Python program file, and let us see what this means. Okay, so they have some variable value equal to 10. Okay, first thing, and I also have another function by name message. I want to make a call to that function message. So what I need to do, let me just get rid of this. How can I print? What is that I want to print? I want to print the value variable, right? Or let me make it as x so it will be simple. The value of x is 10, and here you want to just print x. Now if you run this piece of code, you get 10, right? From where did you get 10? Because here you have x, and when you call this function message, it is able to it is able to access the value x, right? Now, what if I have two variables, uh, and I want to get the sum of these two variables, right? One way to do this is what you can do. You can just mention 10 and 20 in the calling statement itself. When you have when you have written some code like this, that means these are called arguments. Arguments means what? Those are nothing but that is a data that you pass to a function during its calling. You are calling the message function. No, while calling, if you write something in this braces, it means that you are making call to making call to that function by passing some data. When a function is receiving some data, here message is a function that is receiving the data. You need to collect it into some variables. So here these are called parameters. 10 and 20 are arguments, and x and y are arguments. These are the arguments to the function message. Okay. Now you can print both x and y. What would be printed? What happens in this case? This is a function definition, and this is a calling statement, and this is the name of the function message, right? So when you do like this, what happens is the value of x will be associated with the value 10 will be associated with x because it's a first argument or first value, and here the first variable name is x. So x becomes 10 and y becomes 20. Got it? Y becomes 20. And then if you get inside and print it, as you know, by the time x has become 10, y is 20, so 10 and 20 would be the value printed. Okay, let us go ahead and run this. And it use calm arrow. You see 10 and 20 is the output here. Okay. Next thing, what if I want to make another call to this function but with a different data, different input? I'll just say 40 and 4. Okay. I am reusing the code. Okay. And this time I have passed a different set of arguments. With this, x becomes 40 and y becomes 34, and it will be printing 40 and 34 this time. So first time when you have made a call to this, x becomes 10 and y becomes 20, so the output would be 10 20, and here the output would be 40 and 34. Let us go and run this program. You see 10 and 20 and 40 and 34. So this is how you need to understand the arguments. 10 and 20, these are the arguments to message. 40 and 34, these are the arguments to message function, and here x and y are parameters. X and y are parameters to function message. Okay. All right. So based on parameters, functions are of two types. Functions with no parameters. If there are no parameters at all, how the function look like? I have shown you examples also. No, give me five. All these they don't take any arguments or they don't take any parameters. Okay. So you have already used a type function. For type, you need to pass the variable name or some keyword like int. Sorry, you need to pass some variable name, right? Or you need to pass some constant type of 10. It just says class int, right? Length will give you the length of the argument that you have passed, right? So these all take arguments. When the function takes argument or at least one argument, it's braces. You can check its braces actually. In the braces, if you see You look at this, you see the braces. In the braces, you have two variables. It means that this function takes two arguments. Yeah. And sometimes a function need not doesn't take any argument, right? In such cases, we just call that function. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah. In that case, we just call the function without passing any arguments, right? Here, print hello. What about print hello? Does it take any arguments? No, because braces are blank. Print hello is a function without arguments. Print by is a function without arguments. Give me 5 is a function without arguments. Do nothing is a function without arguments. So all these functions that you see here are functions without arguments. They don't need any arguments. They don't take any arguments, right? So this is how, based on the parameters that a function takes, there are two types of functions. One is functions with no parameters. That means the function doesn't take any arguments. The other one is functions with arguments or parameters. So these functions will take input and then they act on the input that they have received within that execution flow. All right. Again, it's the same documentation. If you want to learn more about functions and all, you can just refer to this document on official Python website. All right. Now let us see what all these define actually. So you define the functions here. It's a comment, right? And you see any print any weekday is a name of the function, and it just prints Wednesday. It has one statement, which is nothing but an output statement, which is print, and you just set print and then give the name of the weekday. And whenever you call print any weekday, what would be printed? It will be printing Wednesday always. Got it? And if you have another function like this, print given week is the name of the function, and it also takes argument. It takes one argument in this case, which is nothing but here we call it as a parameter because we are in the context of function definition. Okay, and you just print that given day. That's all. And now you have two functions in your file, but will they execute automatically? No, they won't execute automatically, right? Unless until you call a function, the body won't be executed. So here I'm going to call, okay, print any weekday. When you have written this statement, control from line number 7 goes to control number 2 because line number 2 is the place where this function is implemented. Okay, the control goes to line number 2 and it comes to line number 3 and it prints that statement. It generates the output of that statement Wednesday. And what if I call another function? Sorry, print given weekday. Then control comes to line number 4 because that is a place where this function has been defined. And you see, print given weekday takes argument because its braces are not empty, meaning 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 you can pass argument like this. And when you say I'm passing argument, you need to mention the argument within single quotes. In this case, why single quotes? Because you're passing a string type. String has to be always in single quotes, no? That's why you need to mention something in the single quotes. Here I am passing Sunday as a string, so I kept it in single quotes. Now what happens? You made a call, or you are calling the function print given weekday. Okay, with this control goes back to line number 4 because that is the place where the function has been defined, and it just prints given day. What is given day? Now what happens? The Sunday that you pass, this is called argument. Keep that in mind. This argument will be copied into parameter. So given day now becomes a Sunday. So when it comes to line number 5, it just prints a Sunday. All right. And reusability, right? Again, if I want to call that same function again with a different input, different argument, yes, you can do that. I call that same function, but this time I pass a different argument. What happens when you look at line number 9? It is a function call. So it has to go to the function definition to go and do the job. So given day now becomes Thursday because automatically the values of the arguments will be copied into parameters when the functions are called. So given day now becomes Thursday. Now it comes to line number 5 and it executes Thursday. It prints Thursday. That is what happens in this entire flow of execution. Let me show this practically so that you will understand it better. Yeah. So here what are x and y? X and y are arguments. Sorry, x and y are parameters. Parameters are arguments, we just use them interchangeably, the naming. But here 10 and 20 are arguments. In this case, 40 and 34 are arguments. And x and y here are the parameters. So you tell me what happens if you do this. How many parameters do you, first of all, what is this? This is a function calling statement, right? This is a calling statement or function calling statement. What function are you calling? Message function. And how is a message function? It can take two arguments. It can take two parameters. So just you have passed two arguments. So what is this 10? 10 will be automatically copied into first parameter. First argument will be copied into first parameter. Second argument will be copied into second parameter. This is how automatically the values that you pass in the calling function as arguments will be copied into parameters automatically. That is why when you have printed x and y, because of this call, if you come here and print, you can see both 10 and 20 being printed. Next, you made one more call to this message. Then what happens? 40 will be copied into x automatically because it is the first argument. First argument copied into first parameter. 33 being the second argument will be copied into second parameter. So it comes to the body and then by the time it comes here, x has a value 40 and y has a value 34. So it just prints 40 and 34, right? That is what happened in fact last time. Let me run this, you'll come to know. You this see 10 and 20 and 30, 40 and 34. How did this happen? Okay, so first you have done a couple of things here. First you have defined a function. The name of the function is message. And it takes arguments. How many arguments does it take? Or it takes parameters. How many parameters does it take? It takes two parameters. To mention the parameters to a function, you need to just mention the name of the parameters and you need to use a comma to separate the parameter names. One parameter from another has to be separated using comma. Okay. So when you are calling the function which can take arguments or which can receive parameters, you have passed two values. So these two values will be automatically getting into this, right? Second time when you have called this function, again, same function you have called but with a different arguments. Then automatically x and y will be set properly according to this, right? X becomes 40 and y becomes 34. And when it prints x and y, 40 and 34 are the values that you see in the output. The reason being, those are the values available at that point of time in the parameters x and y. All right. So this is about parameters. So look at this example now. Print any weekday. It doesn't take any parameters. Why? The braces are blank. When the braces are blank, it means that the function doesn't take any parameters. So how do you call this function? Don't mention anything in the brackets. Look at line number 7. That's a function calling statement to this print any weekday. Okay. You don't pass anything within the brackets. right? And what will it do when that function is called? It just prints Wednesday. It always prints Wednesday. Any number of times you call that, it prints Wednesday. That's it, right? In contrast, line number 4, there is another function by name print given weekday, which takes argument, takes parameter. The name of the parameter is given day. And how do you make a call to this kind of function? Same thing, but in the braces on line number 8 and 9, you need to pass some argument in the form within the brackets, within the braces, so that the formal argument given day will be substituted with the value of the actual argument. So given day becomes a Sunday in the context of calling this function from line number 8. All right. And then on line number 9, when you call the same function with a different value, you will be seeing Thursday. Okay. So if I have to just write very similar code as what you see on the slide, I can just say print any day or weekly, whatever it is, let it be whatever. Print any and this print any day, assume that it doesn't take any arguments. So it just prints some specific day. Okay. Now, what if I have to define one more function? Print given day. You are saying given day, but how do you give which day to print? That is what you need to fill it in the parameter. So you can just say day, something, some argument, and here it can print just a day. This day can change based on your call. So now I'm going to call the function print any day. Print any day. And does this print any day function take arguments? No, because the brace is empty. So you cannot pass any argument to this. And let us see what happens so far. So first of all, tell me how many functions do you have within within this file? You have two functions. What are those? Print any day is one function. Print given day is the other function. And here you have made a call. You are calling this function print any day, so that the control comes here and it executes the body of it, which is Wednesday. So you see this, you run this, you should get an output Wednesday. You see the output Wednesday. I run this program once again, it would produce the same output, right? What if I call this the same function again? Reusability, right? Reusability means write once, make use of it many times wherever you want. You run this, it will be printing Wednesday only two times. It will print Wednesday only, but it will print two times. Why? Because the first time you call this function, it will control will come here and will print, and you are done with this. It comes back to the immediate next immediate statement in the execution flow. So this is done, it comes again, but again it is the same function call again, so it has to go back to the same place again. It will print Wednesday and it will come back. All right. So it doesn't matter how many ever times you call this function, its job is to do to print Wednesday. That's why every function has some specific task to do. Here the task given to print any day is that just print Wednesday whenever you are called, is what you said. Make sense? Now what if I want to print whatever day? I want to control what day to be printed. It's not always Wednesday. It could be sometimes Sunday, sometimes Tuesday, something like that. So what is that you have to do then? You have to call it separate. You have to call this function then, because whatever you want to pass as input to this function, that can be through parameters only. So this is a parameter, and here you are passing the argument, and this argument will be automatically copied into this parameter, and then you print day because of this you will be seeing Sunday printed here. Let me run this. There are two things that will happen because of this function call. It will print Wednesday only. After that it calls this function, and this function receives Sunday into day, so it prints Sunday. So the output would be Wednesday and Sunday now. I did a mistake. This is not any day, but this is given day, right? The function name is given day. I am supposed to call this function. I'll come to that error again because I have to explain that error anyways. So you see Wednesday and Sunday are the output produced, right? And what if I want to, if what if I call this function again, but with this time with a different argument? Okay, I say Friday. You see, function call is same, right? And let me put this, remove this. Okay, you see, function call is same, but argument is different. The value of the argument is different. So in the context of this function call, day will become Sunday. In the context of this function call, the same day will become Friday. So that you will be getting different output. Run this. You see, Wednesday, Sunday, and Friday. How, from where did you get all this? Wednesday was by Wednesday was produced by which function? Print any day. That only can print Wednesday, right? And then print given day has produced Sunday, and print given day other time when it has been called, it has produced Friday. All right, this is how you can pass arguments to a function, and you can work on those arguments in the function, right? Say, for example, another practical example would be you want to add two numbers. What are those two numbers to be added? You don't know, right? Until the function is called. So you just need to use some placeholders. So these placeholders are nothing but formal arguments. Okay, now how do I call add function? You can pass any values like this, and it takes two parameters. So you have to pass two arguments. Now automatically A becomes 10, B becomes 20, and A plus B 30. 30 will be stored in sum, and when you print sum, you should see 30 printing out. You see 30 has come out, right? So here also this function has taken two arguments. It's not just one argument you can pass to a function. You can pass as many number of arguments as you wish. In this example, I have passed two arguments or two parameters. In this case, I have passed one parameter. Okay. So this is how functions, and you have both examples in this. This is a function with example. This is an example of the function which takes no argument. This is an example where function takes argument or parameter one, and this is for two. Like this, you can implement for any number of arguments. All right. So in this example, also same thing is explained. Print any weekday is a function that takes no arguments or no parameters, whereas print given weekday takes parameter. Okay, and when you are calling the function which it takes parameters, what you pass are called arguments. By passing those arguments, you can um, change the value of the parameter on the fly when you call that function, and you can process the data accordingly. All right, now look at this code. Okay, what is the difference between previous one and this one? Here you have print any date. Okay, print any date. Does it take parameters? It doesn't. Because how can I say that? How did I say that? Because its braces are empty. That means it takes no parameters. Okay, and when it comes to line number 4, there is another function by name print given date. It takes arguments. How many arguments or how many parameters it will take? It takes three parameters. What are the names of the parameters? Day, month, and year are the parameter names. So accordingly, you can process that. The body is printing, just printing day, month, and year separated by forward slash. That's it. All right. Now look at line number 7 where you are calling these functions. Line number 7 will make the control move to line number 2, and that line number 3 will be executed. So it will just print Wednesday. Then control comes back to line number 8 automatically because it has completed the execution of the function, and the control comes back to line number 8. On line number 8, you are making one more function call to print given date function, and you are passing arguments. Since you are passing 15, 11, and 2005, look at line number 4 now. Date becomes 15 automatically, month becomes 11 automatically, and year becomes 2005. And then control comes to line number 5 and it prints 15 slash 11 slash 2005. Well, after that control comes to line number 9 because executing the function print given date is completed. So control comes back to line number 9, the same line where we left, right? The line which is next to the one where we have just moved to the other place. Yes. Line number 9. Again, you are making a call to that function print given date. This time you are passing the arguments 10, 10, 2010. So now day becomes line number 4. Day becomes 10, month becomes 10, year becomes 2010. And 10 slash 10 slash 2010 will be printed. Got it? Then control comes back. And ninth statement is the last statement here. So we are by the time we have completed executing all the statements. All right. So if you execute this program, the output would be Wednesday 15 11 2005 10 10 2010. All right. So that is a concept of parameters and arguments and how do you pass all that, right? And there is a different way to classify the functions again in two forms based on the written value. Okay, functions not returning value and functions returning values or value. So for example, if you have some functions, right, again I'll show you both the examples actually. So if you look at print hello function in this example, right, on the right hand side, does it return any value? It doesn't return any value. What is meant by returning a value? I'll come to that and explain you with some examples. Now practically let us go back to the coding. Now let us have this function add as it is, and I'm just getting rid of these functions now. I'll make the code as simple as possible. You pass two arguments, you find the sum, and now you print sum. Okay. Now how do I call this function? To make a call to this function, I need to write function name, and since it takes arguments or it receives parameters, I need to pass arguments here. Okay, well, let me run this. It should just print 30, right? Yes, it has printed 30. Now, what if yeah, it prints a sum, right? Now, what if I try to print sum here? You just try to print sum here. You see, oh sorry, it is because it is treating it as a sum. Let me make it as sum one here so that I will give you some different name. Yeah, because this has collided with the name built-in function name sum. That's why I changed it. You see, it's a name error. Why is it name error? Let us understand it. So this is a function, right? There is something called scope. The scope of this function is limited to this portion only, and the variable a, b, and someone, okay, these are accessible within only this scope. Scope means this is a region in the program from which you can only access the variable or variables. Here within this scope, what are the variables you can access? You can access A, you can access B. That's what you're doing. You can also access someone. That's what you're doing here. However, once you come to this scope or this region of the program, you cannot access someone because this region doesn't know what someone means. Someone is a variable only within the scope of add function body. But you are out of this body. How did I say that I am out of the body? Because of this indentation. What is there within the body of add? Only these two statements are within the body of add, and these are outside of the body of add function, right? So once you come out of the function body, you cannot access the variable someone, or you cannot access A, you cannot access B. That's why you get something called a name error. Make sense? You get name error. Okay. So that is what you are seeing here, name error. That means what? You cannot access this value of the variable which is within the function definition called add. This is a rule. That's why sum is called local variable. Someone is a local variable to add function. Local variable is access to add function only. Once you come out of the function scope of add, you cannot access it. But now, yes, you pass it two arguments and you found the sum and you want to get the value back and print it here. How can I do that then? That is where return comes into picture. What is the variable you want to print? What is the value of the variable you want to print? Someone, whatever, wherever the result is stored, you return that. All right. Now, since this is returning something, you need to store it into some variable to make use of it. Now you see R is a variable, but this is accessible only within this scope. Now someone is not accessible from here, but the sum is stored in R. Automatically the return value will be stored in R. So you just print R here. R, variable name R. Run this now. You see you got 30. Why? Because all this happened automatically, right? Right? Add 10, 20. So what happens from the execution point of view? 10 will be copied to A, 20 will be copied to B. Then it continues to execute the body of add. A is now 10, B is now 20, 10 plus 20, 30, stored in someone variable. And that someone variable will be returned. Return is a keyword in Python. What is meant by return? When do you use return? What happens when you use return statement? Whenever a function has to return something back to the calling statement, then you should use return statement. What does really return do? It just reads the value of whatever variable you mentioned, and it will just return back to the statement which has called it. Since you get something back in response, you need to store it in some variable so that you don't lose that value. And you can start printing or whatever you want to do, you can do that. So return statement will transfer the control from the body of the function to the statement that has called it. Along with that, it will also take the value of the variable that you mentioned after return, and it will just return it back to the calling statement. So 10 and 20 sum has been computed, it became 30, and 30 is written back and stored in R, and now you are printing the value of R, which is 30. So you can probably um, take another variable or use same variable also, no problem. You can use add, and this time you may pass different values and you can print R, right? So in this case, 12 and 11 is what you pass, and then you will be getting, you should get 23 because sum is computed as 23. It will be returned back, and that return value 23 will be stored in R, and you are printing R. So just go and run this. Yes, 23 is what you get. There are two calls that you made now for add function. with different arguments. In this case, you'll be getting 30. In this case, you'll be getting 23, and that is what you see in the output. Make sense? So when do you pass argument to a function? When you want to transfer the data from calling statement, this is called calling statement because you are calling the function. No, function calling statement and calling statement are one and the same. Okay, so whenever you want to pass, okay, some data from calling statement to the function, then you need to pass arguments, and those arguments will be copied into parameters. When do you use return statement? When you have to return some value from the function body to the calling statement place, you will be using return statement. Function call will transfer the program control from the statement current statement to the place where the function has been defined. Return statement will transfer the control from the definition of the function to the statement that has called that function. All right. So you can return a value from a function, and that return value is saved into this variable. So functions are again two types: functions returning values, functions not returning values. Here add is example for function returning value, and I can also probably do no return or something, you can say, and I don't want to return, but I just want to print it here directly. And here you can say, of course you can use same variable, but I'm using different variable for you to differentiate. So now you have add a no return. Okay, this is important. Add no return. Does it return any value? It returns nothing. When this function returns nothing, you should not assign it to a variable like this, right? Now look at this carefully. Add is a function with the two arguments. Control from here to this, it will go. A becomes 10, B becomes 20. It will find the sum of 10 plus 20, find the value of 10 plus 20, 30. 30 will be stored in sum. And that 30 will be returned back, and that 30 will be stored in R, and it prints 30. Then you are calling another function. This is a function, right? And it also takes argument. Two arguments it takes. So A becomes 12 and B becomes 11. It again computes the value 12 plus 11, 23, and that 23 will be stored in sum two variable. And you print it becomes 23. That's all, we are done. But this function returns nothing. It returns no value. So functions are of two types again. Some functions will return value like this function returning value, and some functions won't return any value. Both are valid. Okay, based on the situation, you need to decide whether I need to return back something from the function or not required. Okay, so here this is how you can define two types of functions. Function returning value. If a function returns value, you need to use a return statement. If a function is not supposed to return any value, you should just write the body of the function, and in such functions you don't have return statement. All right. So based on this, functions are of again two types. That's what we are seeing here. Functions returning values and functions not returning values. So let us look at each functions here. Print underscore hello. Does it return a value? It doesn't return a value because it doesn't have return statement, right? So that is an example of functions not returning value. Print by is another function which returns nothing. So that is also an example of functions not returning value. Give me 5, line number 5, right? Yes, it has a return statement. That means this function returns a value. So it is an example of functions returning value. Do nothing. Do nothing doesn't have a return statement. So do nothing is an example of functions not returning value, right? And similarly, the built-in functions in Python, len function, min function, max function, all of this will return you some value. So those are all examples of the functions that return value. Make sense? Now what is pass? Let us go back and look at what is pass. Generally, if you are writing code using functions, that is a modularization. Okay, modularization means instead of writing all the statements in one place, one line after the other, you will be just putting them in different places, and you will be naming the blocks of code with different names, right? Now, initially, when you're planning to write some code, what you will do, say for example, you will break that given statement problem into multiple small functions, but you may not implement the functions yet, right? It is just to give you an idea that okay, I want to solve this problem in this way. Say for example, I wanted you to write four different functions or two different functions. One to find the sum of two numbers and the other one to find the difference of two arguments, right? So at least I told you already that you need to write a function which will one function to find the sum, the other function to find the difference, I said. So you definitely need two functions like this. So you get an idea and you print. But you did not execute, you did not write the code. Then you can write pass. So now what happens if I call add function? Remember this pass doesn't return any value, right? It only suppresses the error that okay, there is a function definition. When I am called, just don't return back any error because I'm already available. So now I can call add and diff directly, but they do nothing. Still, I can make use of them. They don't do anything because they don't have the body implemented. They are not defined yet. Still, you can use this pass keyword in such cases where the functions will be available, but the function definitions are not yet developed. In this case, you can still call these functions without any error. Nothing will be produced as output here, but still there is no any error coming out, right? So that is where pass is the keyword that helps you to define the functions incomplete, but still you don't get any errors, and you can just this is just for prototyping or just for POCs, proof of concepts delivery. You will be writing if you have some thought in your mind that I want to modularize this code in so and so this way, then you have to write it this way. All right. Next one, returning one value. And here are the examples, and I have shown you examples already. How do you return one value, right? This is an example of returning one value. Get sum is a function which takes two arguments but returns only one value, which is a sum of those two parameters. And get diff is another example, another function which again takes two arguments or two parameters and returns one value. So both of these will in this example return only one value each. So a function can return one value, and this is an example here, right? So get sum, you're calling get sum function by passing 65 and 20, correct? And it returns back what 85, and you're printing that 85 becomes the argument to print function. There are see in line number 7, print is one function, built-in function, get sum is user defined function. Okay, whatever the value returned by get sum function will become the argument to print function, right? So 65 plus 20 is 85, that 85 becomes the argument to print 85 means it prints 85. Line number 9, get diff. Again, get diff is another function. It takes 65 and 20. The difference between those two is 45. So that 45 will be printed. The next one is again get sum and get diff called in within print function, right? So get sum will return 35 and 35 will be printed, and get a diff will return how much? 21. Yes, 21 will be printed. And that is how these are examples for functions returning single value, but function can return multiple values also. Okay, let us look at some examples. There is a function by name get some diff. It takes two arguments, and see, it returns two values. How do you separate the values to be returned? If a function returns more than one value, you have to separate them by comma. So sum1 plus sum2, that is one value that it returns, and sum1 minus num1 minus num2. Sorry, it is num1 plus num2 what it returns, and num1 minus num2 is a second value that it could return, right? So the return values are separated by comma, and this is an example of a function returning multiple values. Another example here is there is another function called get min max. It also takes two parameters, and between those two parameters, it will find the minimum. It will also find the maximum, and it is supposed to return both the values. It should return minimum as well as maximum. So this is also an example of a function returning multiple values, right? And how do you call these functions? It is the same thing, right? But it is in this case, functions are returning more than one value, so you need to specify more than one variable on the left hand side so that you can capture the return values properly into the variables. In fact, this is nothing but a tuple. It creates a tuple actually in this example, right? Of course you can print them now, sum, difference, minimum and maximum. Let us practically do this. So I'll come to this add and diff only, or I say sum and diff. I need to return back both. Diff, sorry. So I may do like this. I may find some first. I'm just breaking it down into small pieces. I can do it one statement also, but I'm just difference is a minus b, right? All right. Now I'm supposed to return the sum as well as difference. So see how I'm returning value, how I am writing the return statement. I'm returning more than one value. Then I need to separate those return values by comma. All right. Now when I call this function sum underscore diff, first of all, do I need to pass arguments? Yes, I need to because it takes parameters, two parameters. So I may pass 30 and 10. Okay, now what if I just run this program as it is? Nothing happens. Why nothing happens? Let us see. Program executes, but there won't be any output. Why? There is no any output statement. It just calls this, it computes, and it returns, that's all. But now you need to capture the written values into some variables like this. Why I have written two variables here? Because this function returns more than one value. It returns two variables. When this function returns two variables, you need to capture them into two different variables. The written value has to be captured because it's like it throws two things. You need to catch both of them like that. Yes, put it to some variable ss. It also returns d, put it into dd. Now you print them. Print ss and dd. You can run this now. Now you should get a output. You can see the output. 40 and 20 is what it says. Is it correct? Two values it has printed. So 30 and 10 is what you have passed. 30 plus 10 is 40. 40 is stored in yes. 30 minus 10 is computed. Then d becomes 20. So 40 and 20 will be returned back. So those written values will be stored. 40 will be stored in SS, and the second written value 10 will be stored in DD. So 20 will be stored in DD. SS will be 40 and DD will be 10. The difference, right? Sorry, 20. DD will be 20. When you print, SS will be 40. 40 is printed, and DD is 30 minus 10. 20. 20 is printed. So this is how a function can return more than one value. When a function returns more than one value, you need to assign those return values to the same number of variables on the left hand side of the function calling statement, so that S will be copied into SS, D will be automatically copied into DD. The other example you have seen on the screen on the slide was finding both minimum and maximum. Again, it also takes three arguments. So there are two arguments, right? Okay, now what you need to do, you can simply write a statement like this instead of RURN written. Min is a built-in function, and I'm making use of that built-in function from my user-defined function. Quite possible. Okay. Second one is you need to find maximum between A and B. Yes. Right? Now I may use same variables again, or I may use different variables. Again, two variables are on the left hand side because this function also returns two values. And I am asking what is bigger and smaller between 20 and 45. Now I can go and print minimum and max, mini and maxi. Run this program now. You see 20 and 45 is what it has printed. What is 20? 20 is a minimum. Yes, both of these I have passed. Among these two, between these two, which one is smallest is what I have asked. So it said 20 is smaller. Yes, 20 is what it has printed first. Then between these two, what is maximum? The second one obviously would be maximum 45. So 45 is printed here. This is how a function can return more than one value. When a function returns more than one value, you have to write return statement by separating the return variables by comma or return constant, literals or whatever. If a function returns more than one value, you just use comma operator to differentiate the return values. Then on the other end, on the receiving end, you need to copy them to multiple variables. Why? Because you are not just getting one value out, you are getting two values. So you have to put two variables on the left hand side when you are calling that function, right? If this function returns three values, for example, you need to put three variables on the left hand side. That's how you are capturing the return values into different variables. That is how you can return more than one value from a function. All right. Next one is the concept of local variables. Look at this code carefully. You will understand what local variables mean. I have already talked about this a couple of minutes back with an example, but I'll cover this with some other example now. So let me go back to the code and I'll just write something here. I have diff fun, okay, and oh, sorry, I print something called a. What do you think if I run this program as it is happens? Okay. Or let me comment on this for now. And what do you think if I print just a? This is a statement. This my code has only this. What do you think if I have run this? You'll get an error, name error. Why? It doesn't know what is a. A is not within the scope. What is a? It doesn't know, right? That's why if you say a equal to 10 or 20 or something like this and then run, it works. Why? Already there is some variable by name a in the scope and it can print it. So now it works. It should print a 10, right? It prints 10. All good, right? Now the same thing I want to do in function. What if I have to do this in function? I'm just printing a variable by name a and run this. Nothing happens. Interestingly, you don't get an error also. Why you did not get an error? Because just defining a function is not enough. If you just define a function, it won't get executed. Only when you call the function, it gets executed. Now I am calling this function. Now you should get an error that I don't know what a is. You should get a name error. You see, you get a name error. Where did you get this name error? On line number 2. What is line number 2? Line number 2 is this. This is where you are accessing A, no? And this function doesn't know what A means. That's why you got an error, which makes sense, correct? So if you just write some function with some error statements, and if you don't call that function, you won't get those errors automatically reported. You will get those errors reported only when you execute that function. To execute the function or to run the statements within that function, you need to call that function. You need to make a call to that function. Then you will start seeing the error messages. All right, that's okay. But now, why did this say that I don't know A? Because there is no A within the scope. So what I can do, I can just say A equal to 10. Now what happens? Now you won't get that error because now there is some variable by name A within the scope of fun. When you call the function fun, comes control comes here. It knows that it will establish a variable called A by value 10 and it can print the value A. Means 10 it will be printing. So you can see 10 printed out. No error now. Makes sense, right? But what if I try to print this A from this place? Okay. As you see here, you get a name error. But on line number 6 this time, what is there on line number 6? Line number 6 is this one only. Okay. One, 2, 3, 4, blank line. 5 and 6. On the sixth line, you see you are accessing A, but it has thrown an error. Why? You have variable A, no? But remember, there is variable A, but it is only within the scope of this function. That's why A becomes local variable to fun. A becomes local variable to fun function. You cannot access this A from outside this function. That's why now you are trying to access A from outside the function. So you get an error, name error. Make sense? So that is the concept of local variable. When you use some variables within a function, those variables will automatically become local to those functions. Okay, and those local variables are accessible only within those individual functions. But once you are outside the scope of the function like this, how did I say outside the function scope? This indentation, this will tell me to what extent the region or the scope of fun is. And up to here only this function scope is available. But here it is not available. So you are outside the scope of the function, and here you are unable to access the variable A. So A becomes what? A becomes local variable to function fun. All right. That is a concept of local variable, and especially the beginners, they may think that I have a variable with the name A, but why does it say that I don't know A? Why does it give me name error? This is a reason. This could be the reason. The scope is what you need to understand. Once you understand the scope, you don't have that A at all. And if you want to really address this, there are different ways. You can just take another variable but the same name because you're using A here also, and you can initialize it here. Then you will get here you will be getting two values 10 and 20. 10 is produced by the function fun and 20 is produced by this print statement. So now this A is visible to this print function and this A is visible to this print function. If you don't have this line, this A cannot be accessed from here. So A is local variable to fun function. All right, let us get onto slide and see example there also. So there is something called local variable function. The function name itself is local variable, and it has a variable 1 equal to 12, and you print variable 1. Perfect, it works, right? Because as long as you are within local variable function, you can access variable 1, right? You are still in the scope of local variable, you can access variable 1. It could print 10, sorry, 12. All right, next, when you come to line number 6, you have another variable by name variable 2, and it has 65 in it. Well, and on line number 7, what do you think happens? Can you access variable 2 from line number 7? Of course, yes. because on line number 6 only you have variable 2 which is also accessible from line number 7. So it prints 65. Next, you call the function local variable, and when you get to local variable function body from line number 2, control comes to line number 3 where variable 1 will be coming into scope and it will be having a 12. And when you print, 12 will be printed, right? So you're done with executing the local variable function. Now control comes back to line number 9 automatically because that is the line which is immediately next statement after the function calling statement on line number 8. So you should continue executing the rest of the statements in the program. All right. Now you are trying to access or print variable 1. Variable 1 is not accessible from line number 9. Variable variable 1 is accessible only from statements 3 and 4. That's why you will be getting name error. This is what I was showing you practically. All right, next one. Yes, global variables. I'll show you this also practically. What is meant by global variable and how do you really make use of these global variables? Okay, so what if I write this statement? Oh, sorry. Before this function definition like this. Okay, interesting, right? Okay, let me remove this for now or comment out this for now. Yes. Now you see, of course, you have some variable initialized to 20 and you have some function definition. You are using a. There is no any local variable a, but will it access this or not? I'll show you quickly. And you are calling this function so that it comes here and it should ideally throw out an error or should if it is accessing this, you should print. Now you are printing a again once you come back from this function and this a does it refer to this or it will throw out an error. That's what you need to understand. So if I'm going to run this program, the first thing is it produces the output 2020. From where did this 2020 come, right? So this variable is before these statements. So anything that you have written afterwards can access this variable. So this function when you call it comes here by the time you ask it to print a, as you can it could see some variable by name a with the value 20 and that 20 will be printed by this function. After that control comes back to the next statement. Here a, this a is nothing but this. So this also prints 20. That means this variable a is accessible both by fun function and outside from the fun function. This is called a global variable. Okay, global variable. A is now global variable because it is accessible within the function as well as outside the function. It is accessible by both. And if you have 10 different functions after this statement, all those 10 functions would be able to access this variable. Okay. So this is called a global variable in this case. A becomes global variable. Interestingly, what if I remove this? What if I remove this? Okay. Let us see what happens now. 10 and 20 is output. Why is that? Look at this carefully. Yes, you have a variable by name a and it has a value 20 and you have a function definition and you call this function. Calling this function, okay, you come here and a will be having a value 10. And very importantly, remember this a is different than this a. Why? The names of the variables can be same, but this a is with different scope and this a is with a different scope. So as far as you stay back within fun function, when you refer to a, you are just referring to this one. So when you are printing this a, you will be getting 10. That's why you get the first 10. You come out. From here, when you are accessing, what is at a? Are you referring to this or this? From here outside the function, you are referring to this. Why? Because When once you are outside the function, you cannot access this because a is local. In this a is local to one function, so you cannot access this from here. So when I say a from outside the function, it always refers to global variable. That's why global variable value is 20. So you are getting 20 here and you are getting 10 here, which is a local variable value. So now the statement which is outside the function is able to access the global variable, right? Now, if I want to access this a from here, what should I do? First of all, you should not have any variable with the same name as your global variable in your function. Okay. And what you need to do is you need to write something called a global a. That means you have to write this. Global is another keyword in global in Python. Global a. And now you change its value. For example, I'll show you the difference. Yeah. So what happens now? There is a global variable a. You call a function. There is a function definition. You call that same function now. Here the statement says that refer to global variable a going forward within your scope is what it says. So this a is nothing but this a. You have changed the value. Oh, well, that is also 20. Let me change this for some difference. Yeah, this has a different value now. But remember, this global variable is what you are accessing from here. So now this value becomes 30. You print 30. You come back here when you access a, what it would be? Would be 30 or 20? It would be 30 because global variable value has been changed by the function definition. When you are executing that function has changed the value of the global variable to 30 from 20. So 20 is no more in this variable. So when you print a, it would be printing 30. So the output would be 30 and 30 to this. You see 30 and 30, right? So this is how you need to understand these things. What is the concept of global variable? And here the global and then variable name, what it indicates is refer to global variable but not local variable. If you don't have this statement, that's a different story. If you don't have this statement, then this is a local variable. This becomes a global local variable. And when you print it prints 30, but when you come here and print it will be printing 20 because this can only access the global variable, not this variable local. But when you say global A, it indicates that I am referring to the global level variable that has been defined. So this is what it refers to, and you update it to 30. But since being a global variable, this also has to access this one only. No, by that time the value of A has been changed to or updated to 30. So you see 30 coming out here. So the output would be 30 and 30 here. The reason is you have used global A, meaning I am referring to global variable from here is what you said, right? This is a concept of global variables, right? Local variables and global variables. Concept is very important and you need to understand it really what it is. All right. The next one is global variables. Again, the same thing that I have already explained. I'm not going to spend much time on this. Okay. Next one is yeah, I have covered this now. Positional arguments. Yes, positional arguments. Again, I'll cover this quickly. What is positional arguments? Positional arguments comes into picture when you have a function with parameters. Okay. So I'm going to read name and age of a person and I want to print. Okay. Now, if you are calling this function by passing name as Arun and age as 25, what would happen? It would print name and then Arun and age colon 25. That's the expectation. Yes, that happens. You see, name is Arun and age is 25. That extra space has come because I have also added a space. So I can remove this space because by default the separator will be single space and you can get that now automatically coming out. So name is Arun and age is 25. Well, now if I call this the same function again, but by mistake or whatever, I have just passed the age first and then name later. What happens in this case? In this case, oh, sorry. In this case, what would be copied into name in the second case? In this function call, in the context of this function call, what is copied into name? 25. What is copied into age? Arun. So when it prints name, it prints 25, and when it prints age, it prints Arun. Right? It has wrongly interpreted the values. It's not the problem of the function, but the way I have passed them, right? By mistake or whatever, I have passed them wrongly. But my intention was to treat this as age and to treat this as name. That means it has to treat 25 as a second argument and it has to treat Arun as a first argument. For that, what I should do is that is where you have to use, you can use like this. You want to put this in age, right? So you should say age is equal to 25 and then name equals to Arun. You just mention that to which argument you want to pass this. That is what you need to tell. Here you are saying please treat 25 as a age argument or parameter. Please treat Arun as a name argument. Now it would print properly because when you refer to name, you said name is Arun, so it will be printing properly. So this is what, see, you see, in this case it prints name as Arun properly because you have explicitly mentioned. So where does this help really? When you are calling functions and you call that function with a different arguments in different order, right? You are calling that function by passing arguments in different order. It is important for you to name, associate that argument with a name of the argument. What argument you want to really consider this to be considered, right? So 25 you said please treat this as age, no problem. Age is second argument, but you're passing here as a first argument, no problem, because here you explicitly mentioned please treat this 25 into age. So this would become second argument here, but here it would be while passing you are passing it first as a first argument, but still it will be copied into second argument. So this is how you can pass arguments. And here the ordering doesn't matter, as you have already seen, right? Ordering doesn't matter, right? So same example here also, I have taken two variables and sorry, yeah. When it comes to positional arguments, the order matters. But when it comes to keyword arguments, in the case of keyword arguments, what you will do is you will just, you know, pass the arguments by mentioning the name of the argument, right? I want to use this as so and so argument, you will say. In that case, you won't get any problem. It will be automatically considering them as a right arguments because you have explicitly mentioned the name of the argument. That is all about keyword arguments and is very, very helpful. And the next one is default arguments. Another interesting thing in Python. Sorry. Yeah. So what is default arguments? Let me take this same example and I'll show you what it is. So in this existing function, what happens if I don't pass any argument? In fact, if you look at the definition of this fun, how many parameters it should take or it will take? It takes two parameters. But that means I should pass how many arguments? If a function is taking two parameters, I should pass two arguments, right? But I don't pass anything here intentionally. What happens now? Obviously, you should expect some error. You see, one missing two required positional arguments, right? I'm expecting two arguments to come, but you did not pass anything, is what it says. Okay. What if I pass only one instead of two? This takes two parameters, I understand, but intentionally I'm passing only one. What about second one? I did not pass. What happens now? This is also an error, but this time it will say it is missing one. Earlier it was missing both, no. But now for one argument it knows what to use, but the second argument it doesn't know what value to use. That's why you get clearly it says that I don't know what to use for age. I don't know. You did not pass age. I don't know how to what to use for that. Okay, that is why you are getting all those errors. So to correct that, generally we'll be passing both the arguments and this will work well. This is all what you have already been observing, right? Now, what if I want this function to treat age as 20 if I don't pass age at all? Okay, let's see what happens. How do I mention that to this function? So at the time you mention the argument name, parameter name, you just use equal to and mention the default value. Then this becomes default argument. Default arguments need not be passed. Is name a default argument? No, name is not a default argument. Is age a default argument? Yes, age is a default argument. Can I call this function without passing anything? That's not possible because it expects minimum one argument, which is name. So you pass this. In this case, what happens? I did not pass age. What does the fun function consider for age? It automatically considers 20. So now the output would be name is Ajay and age is 20. Automatically it has considered 20 as the age of that person. You see that? And what if I explicitly pass age as 22, which is different than the default value of this? Then it considers this passed value as age. So now the output would be name is Ajay and age is 22. You see, name is Ajay and the age is 22. So what is this? If you pass some value to the default argument, it retrieves whatever value you have passed. If you have missed to pass that, or if you have skipped to pass that, if you have skipped to pass that, then what happens? The default value is assumed. That is the concept of default argument. Now you tell me what are different ways to call this function? How many ways you can call this function in? Don't pass second argument at all because second argument has a default value. Or if you want to override that, yes, you can override that default. Or if you want to explicitly mention that 20 once again, yes, that is also possible. But there is no use. Even this one and this one are one and the same now because the default value is also 20. So this is how you can see all that. Make sense? Okay. Interestingly, what if I make name also as default? What if I want to make name also as default argument? Now, can you tell me how many different ways I can call this function fun? Since it takes two parameters first, both parameters are default. That means I need not pass any argument at all, or I can pass one argument, or I can pass both the arguments, and I'll change the name now. Right? The other way is I can only pass age. How? Using keyword arguments. Okay, if I have passed only age, what would be the name? It would consider name as Ajay automatically because that's the default value. So you tell me what would be the output for this statement? The output would be name is Ajay and age is 20. Both of them assumed from default arguments. In this case, I passed only one value that is considered to be name. So instead of Ajay, it considers Abhay. So the output would be name is Abhay with the age 20. Where this 20 come from? Where does it come from? It comes from default arguments because I didn't pass that. For this call, what happens? It prints name as Bindu because default argument value is overwritten by me because I have passed it explicitly. So name would be Bindu and age I have also passed. So age would become 22 and it would be printing 22 instead of 20. In this case, I have used keyword argument and I said, please consider 30 for the age parameter. So this becomes 30, but the name is assumed to be Ajay only. So the output would be name is Ajay, but the age is 30. So let us run this and check that quickly. I'm going to bring back this code. You see, first call means this call I am referring to. Both are defaults. So Ajay and 20 is what you see. In this case, only age is age is considered from the default argument. So the name is Abhay, but the age is 20. And from this, the name is Bindu and the age is 22. Both are overrated. So Bindu with age 22. And when it comes to this, age is what I have given explicitly as 30. So name is assumed to be Ajay and it will be printing Ajay with an age 30. So these are different possible ways to call the same function, right? Four different possible ways to call this function. Okay. By when all both its arguments are default arguments. And if you there is one more also if you want, but again it is it is not of any use. You can give age here and you can give name here explicitly, something like this. Of course, this is also fine. It assumes the name to be Kiran now and age to be 30 now, right? So these are all different ways to call this function. So this is a concept of default arguments and how it works in Python. The next one is variable length arguments. Again, again another interesting topic. Okay, so how do we deal with a variable number of arguments? So best example is I want to find the sum of the arguments that I receive, but I don't know how many arguments I will receive. If I say a comma b, this function I can use only to find the sum of two variables. What if I have if I have three variables to find the sum, right? In such a situation, I may probably see for example, I want to make this as I may want to call this as with the two arguments. I may also want to call this with the three arguments. I may also call this with the four, five, 10 arguments also. I don't know, right? It should be very generic actually. Okay. So I may pass four different arguments. I may not even pass arguments interestingly, right? How to make this fun function work in all these cases? It's just one function, right? How here the number of arguments change, right? Number of arguments is changing every time. Then how can I write a generic code here? That is where you should use star and give some name, args or arguments or whatever you say, right? For now, I'm just going to print args. I'll just show you what happens. It is capable of reading all these arguments or not is what you can observe now. You see, it is able to read them, no? Yes or no? When I pass two arguments, it is able to read it. When I pass three arguments, it is able to read it. When I pass four arguments, also the same function is able to read it. And in the last case, I did not pass anything, but it reads it, right? It treats it as empty. But first of all, what is this? How did it treat these things as? It has treated them as tuple. 1, 2 in the braces separated by comma is a tuple, no? right? So now if you print the type for, right? You see setable, right? So when you have to pass different number of arguments or variable length arguments or variable number of arguments, Python treats them as a collection of tuple. All right. So now again, how do you find the sum of all these elements? And you can use some function on tuple, right? You can use some function now. Now you see this works well. Oh, sorry. What's the problem? Sum is already there in some module. Oh, sorry. This is sum already. Okay, okay. Let me call it as sum1. This is user defined function, no? And sum is a system existing function. That's why. All right. Now run this. You see, it is able to find the sum in all these cases. The sum of 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 is what you have seen. 1 plus 2, 3 plus 3, 6. Then 1 plus 2 plus 3, 6 plus 7, 13. And in this case, you didn't pass anything, then it would be 0. Sum is 0. So this is how it can understand and react accordingly. So this is just one function, but it can take variable number of arguments or variable length arguments. All that you need to do is you need to use star over there. So this is the concept of variable number of arguments and how to pass to function. All right. Next one is key value arguments. Very interesting again. How do you really deal with this, and how do you really, in what situations you have to use this, right? So basically, you have to use double star for this, and how do you make calls to this is what I'm going to show actually. Yeah, let me make the same function name to be the same, but that's not a big deal. And I say first argument is this, okay. Second argument is a text string I have given. Okay, now again, let us go and print args and see what happens. You see, what did I do? I have a function by name someone, and for that I have passed two arguments, but every argument I have passed by using keyword arguments. I said first argument is 1 and second argument is high. Let me run this. You see, what is this? Is it not a dictionary? Key value pair. This is a key and this is a value. This is a key and this is a value, right? So it has automatically converted into key value pair or consider it as key value pair. So when you use double star and some argument name, then what Python considers it as a dictionary. So now its arguments are in the form of key value pairs. Let us print the type and check. You see it is a dictionary, right? Now, being a dictionary, if I have to print the first argument and second argument, how can you do that? You know how to access the first argument, right? In a dictionary, how do you access the values? You have to mention the key value, key name. FIRST is a key name, right? And if you have to print the second argument, you need to mention the key of the second key value pair. All right, run this. What did I do? Extra space. Okay, extra bracket. All right, you see, 1 and a half have been printed. That means I am now able to pass different arguments to this function someone. So this is important. And if you put XYZ here, ABC here, you need to use those keys properly. So this is how you can pass key value pair arguments to function, and they are treated as a dictionary obviously, because dictionary is a collection of key value pairs, and from there accessing all those values and all is very similar to how you deal with the dictionaries, right? So that is all about that. And in this example, what I have done is I have passed three different arguments. Name is Ajay, age is 21, and the city is Hyderabad. So it will just convert these into key value pairs. First key value pair would be name colon Ajay, second one age colon 21, and third one city colon Hyderabad. So while I'm printing them, you will be getting that obviously, right? Args of name means it will be printing Ajay, and args of age 21, and args of city as Hyderabad. This happens for the call that I made on line number 7. For the call that I made on line number 8, again I'm using keyword arguments, right? So city would automatically become Delhi, age would become 22, and the name would become Geeta. So while printing, you will be getting them same in the same way. And here also them I have used keyword arguments, and now it prints name as Charan, and age as 22, and city as Chennai. So this is how keyword arguments can be used. Okay, the next one is recursion. I'll just quickly cover this as well. So what if I have some function print num or print numbers, and it takes an argument, it takes a parameter, and I call this print underscore numbers by passing 5 as an argument, or 6. Okay, 5 is okay for now. But I did not write the body. What I'm doing for now is I'm just printing n as it is, just to begin with, right? What happens now? I pass 5 and I'm calling this. So 5 will be printed here, as simple as that, right? Yes. I pass 3 this time. I'm calling this once again. So you 2. So if I run this, I'll be getting 5 under 2, right? 5 under. All right. Now, what if I want to print all the numbers up to 5, a natural number? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is what I want to see when I call this. For now, let me comment out this quickly. All right. What if I have to print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So there are different ways. You can use range function, right? For, sorry, for I in range 1 comma n plus 1, right? You can print what? I. This is using loop. Perfect. It works well, no doubt. It will be printing, and I'll just say end character space. I'll just go over and default it. Let me run this. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 printed. And the same thing if I call this using 2, you can see it will be printing 1, 2 as well. Okay, before sorry, that 1, 2 also has come in the same line. So I can use empty print here, so that it goes to the next line of this call, right? Well, but the thing is, I'll just write some code. I get rid of this range function totally, range completely, and still I can achieve this. How? Let us see. Okay. Again, I'll comment out these 2 lines of code, and let us see what happens. I pass 5. and observe the, sorry. Hmm. Observe this function name, and here also it is same, no? Print underscore numbers. Perfect. Okay, I pass 5. What happens first of all? From this line I come here, n will be 5. It checks the condition. Is 5 less than 1? No, it is not. Then it won't return. What happens? It comes to this. But remember, this is the same function. I'm calling this function from this. I'm calling the same function within its body. This is called a recursion. Recursion is a process of calling a function within itself. So this entire thing is a scope of this function, and within this function I'm calling the same function once again, but with a different argument. That is important. If you don't use a different argument, it will be calling itself and it will never terminate. That becomes an infinite execution. But when you implement recursion, you have to be very much careful about that infinite execution. So first of all, what did I receive into n when this was called from here? 5. But when I'm calling this again, what did I receive? What did I pass? I have passed 4 because 5 minus 1 is 4. So because it is a function call, and where is this function defined? It is defined here. Now it comes here. What is the value of n now? It would be 4 reduced because you have passed 4 only. 5 minus 1, 4. It checks the condition now. Now the value of n is 4. 4 less than 1 is false. Again you are calling the function. Remember, n is 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. 3 is what you are passing. Again control comes here. But remember, last two times you have been going back from here only, and you never got a chance to execute this piece of code. I'll come back to that later. But for now n is 3. You are here. 3 less than 1 is false. Again it comes here. You're calling the function once again. 3 minus 1 is 2. You call this function, so it comes back here. N is 2. 2 less than 1 false. Again you come here. 2 minus 1 is 1. And you come here. N is 1. 1 less than 1 is also false. You come here again. Now 1 minus 1 is 0. N is 0. 0 less than 1 is true for the first time. It returns. But remember, hold on. Where does it return? It returns to the statement immediately after the calling statement. So this was a calling statement with value of 1, right? 1 minus 1, 0, right? So that return comes here. Now is a time to execute the leftover statements. But remember, at that point of time, n was 1. So 1 will be printed now. After that, you have completed. But there were a couple of calls that you have been called with 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So in the context of earlier iteration or earlier recursion, the value was 2. 2 minus 1, no. So 2 will be printed. 3 will be printed. 4 will be printed. 5 will be printed. Let me show this quickly. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have come here. How? That is what it is. That is the power of recursion. I did not use any range function, but this will automatically, you can use end here if you want. End is equal to single space. And you see it's same output as how I was getting this in this case, right? But I have achieved this using recursion. Earlier I was using range function and for loop. I can replace that range function for loop with this piece of code now. This is nothing but recursion. Recursion is a process of calling a function within itself. Make sense? And what if I call this same function recursive function? Now it has become a recursive function. Print numbers has become a recursive function. What if I call this recursive function with an argument 2? It prints 1 and 2 because that is a limit anyways, right? So let me run this again for you. So I'm calling both with the argument 5 and 2. So when it is passed with 2, this is what you see. When I pass it with it, when I pass it with 5, this is what you see. When I pass it with 2, this is what you see. Okay. All right. This is what the concept of recursion is. And interestingly, if you just change the ordering, right? For example, you change this and you put it before here, this one, right? Even inside also you can do. I'll just quickly show you what I mean. Can you guess what happens if I do this? All that happens here is It will just print. Oh, sorry. My bad. This happens only. This condition becomes true only once, and after that, nothing happens. So I'm trying to put it here actually. Yeah. What happens now? It just prints them in reverse order. No, 5 4 3 2 1 and 2 and 1. Simple. No, it is just a change in the place, but there's a lot for you to understand. And for the first time, you may not be able to understand this, but this is how recursion works. And by just changing the position of the statements, the ordering of the output has completely changed. One is ascending and one is descending, right? This is how recursion works, and there are other examples like finding the factorial and all that stuff. And the factorial example is given in the slide, so you can use that also to understand the concept of recursion, but I am skipping it for now. It's also based on the same concept that I have been explaining, right? The next one is lambda functions, the last topic for today. This is also another interesting concept. So these are very much close to functions, but these are not really functions, but these are called lambdas. So when you have functions with short body, like your function has very few lines of code, maybe one line, most of the times, or two lines, you can think of replacing your function with lambda. Lambda is basically to write less code, and you can get rid of a function, and especially it is useful when your function has less number of statements. So this is how you have to implement lambda, right? Some variable equal to lambda is a keyword in Python, and then n is n, you can treat it as a parameter to your function, okay? And colon n times n is nothing but whatever I give you, please double it and give it to me is what you're saying. Sorry, you please square it and give it to me is what I'm asking. And the result will be stored in square. Square is the name of the lambda. So if you call this lambda by like this, square 3, 3 times 3, n becomes 3 and 3 times 3 becomes 9. So square will be 9. So not only this, you can use this in a very other interesting applications. If I give you some string, I want to convert into capital and give it back. For that, you already have upper. But if you have to implement it in the form of lambda, this is how you can do that. Okay. And if you want to check whether given number is positive or negative, this is a lambda implementation. So a is argument to the or parameter to the function. If you think about function concept, I'm just comparing functions with lambda, and it returns a string positive if that given a is greater than or equal to 0. Otherwise, it returns a string negative, and whatever it returns, it will be stored in check. So you should use check in your function. Check 5. 5 is positive, so you'll be getting print. You will be printing. It will be printing positive, and if you pass negative, it will be printing negative. If you pass 0, it will be printing positive only, because your condition a greater than or equal to 0 is what you have written for positive. Let me quickly show this also practically. And so how do you, just let me show you how to implement lambda. First thing is square is equal to lambda. It's a keyword in Python, and anything you can use here, okay, any variable name. And I just want to double it. Okay, I can use as many lambdas as I wish at the beginning only. And I want to put something in capital, right? I can say capital equal to again lambda. Whatever I give to you, please convert it into upper is what I'm asking. For that I can use upper, already existing built-in function. Same thing, I want to check whether the given number is positive or negative. For that I need to use check is equal to lambda of whatever argument I pass. Okay, return positive when only if a is greater than or equal to 0. otherwise else written negative. Perfect. Now, what if I have to call these lambdas? So I can say print the output of I'm going to pass I call square and I'm going to pass 4 to this. 4 times 4, 16 is what I'm expecting out of it. And I'm going to pass capital, okay, and I pass some lowercase string. And I'm going to call print by passing. I'm going to check now by passing 2. Also by passing some negative value minus 6, also 0. This is 0. All right, let's run this. Oh, sorry. You see what happened? 16 is result of this 4 times 4. And who has written this? The lambda has written this. But while you are implementing or calling it, it is very much similar to function call syntax. But internally, what you have implemented in this case is not a function but a lambda, right? And the second one, this has been converted to capital, and that's what has been printed, whatever I have given, right? Check 2. 2 is a positive number, so you get positive. Minus 6 is negative, you got negative. And 0 is treated as positive according to this logic, that's why you get positive. This is how you can implement lambda expressions in Python. These are very helpful in case your functions have very small body and all that. Okay. Yes. Um, we're almost at the end of the session. Okay. And before I conclude, I'll again walk you through our website, technolearnit.com. And I see a comment here. I am beginner to watch this for the first time. Okay, all right. So this is for you especially. Whoever is attending this session for the first time and missed the earlier sessions. First thing, this is our website, technolearnit.com. Make a note of this and go through this. You will understand what courses we offer, who we are, and what we work upon. And main thing for you to understand is these are different. There are different modes to contact us. You can use either of these channels, and you can use any of these social media channels to subscribe and be in touch with us, or you can directly call us if you need any assistance and all in the topics that we have been covering. And most importantly, for people who have attended this for the first time, this is a page where you have all the resources available. So far, we have completed 13 sessions, and all the material that we have used for all these 13 sessions is available at these links. And you can download these resources for free and make use of them. Practice more and more and become better at programming and become a great Python developer. Also, the same page also indicates the information about the next live session. So the next live session information will be up to date on this page. So I would strongly suggest you guys to have this page visited every now and then so that you will understand and you will be up to date with latest information. Next, this is our Technolearnit YouTube channel, and I would strongly suggest you to please subscribe. Okay, and by subscribing, you will be getting notifications for all our live sessions. Not only that, but also we will be posting a daily quizzes on Python. So these are all the daily quizzes that you see on Python, and you will be getting these daily quizzes if you subscribe, and you can watch these quizzes till end. And every quiz is just half minute width, so a half minute length. So you can just watch these quizzes up to end. Any quiz you take, okay? Every quiz, any quiz will not exceed half minute. So you visit these quizzes, guess the answer. It's all these are multiple choice, right? Guess the answer, and please watch the quiz till end, because the right answer will be highlighted at the end within the same quiz. So these are all inbuilt answer quizzes. So you can validate whether your guess is right or wrong with the right answer. This is how you don't lose connect with the programming or the topics that you learn. Okay, and this is the way to keep in touch with the topics that you have learned. With that said, there are other social media platforms as well, like LinkedIn, and you see this. You have everything actually. You have Instagram, you have LinkedIn, you have X, and of course YouTube mainly. I have just uh, talked about, because this is the one thing that majorly we'll be using for communication, and all the live sessions will be conducted on YouTube only. So with that said, you'll be getting the resource that I have used for session 14 also available on this website very soon, and you can download it and you can make use of it. All right. With that said, I strongly once again suggest, or I recommend you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, so that you will be getting all the notifications and all the information about our live sessions to your account. All right. With that said, I am going to conclude the session for today, and hope you understood these functions and the examples that I have taught. This brings us to the end of session 14 on functions. All right. Wish you all the best, and practice more and more to become more programmer, and stay tuned for my next live session. Take care. Bye.